Hey team, welcome to video number 4 in the 6-part series. We're going through the DocPal system of goal setting. DocPal, of course, is an acronym. We talked about dreaming in video number 1. Then we moved on to organizing those dreams and we start to take a look at time frames. And then we started to take a look at clarifying in the previous video. And this is all about SMART goals there. So we start to get very specific about our 1, 2, or 3 goals that we're going after for the next 4 weeks. Now, this piece in the system is P for plan. So planning, now this is where we really start to get into action. So in the previous video, you were able to walk away with 1, 2, or 3 pretty specifically articulated goals that were super clear. There was quantitative elements involved. You were really personally bought in as well. And we're really starting to see the magic and the power of how this type of goal setting can really change the game. And it's very, very different. And it's very more precise and powerful than just saying something like, oh, one day I would love to be able to speak Spanish, or I really want to go for that promotion. We're no longer playing in that really high level, kind of more generic language. We're getting very specific with what it is that we're going after, why we're going after. Remember that personal resonance is super, super important. And now in the planning, here's where we really start to get into strategy and tactics. So in the previous video, which I hope you have watched, by the way, because if you haven't, please go back and watch that first because you might be a little lost in this one otherwise. And before I go any further, of course, I have to remind you that hopefully you've watched videos 1, 2, and 3, Dream, Organize, Clarify, and you've been following along in the free PDF workbook to help you go through the exercises, organize your thoughts, and get super clear and caught up with all this stuff that I'm just talking at you about, okay? I don't want you to be lost. I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this content. Okay, so planning. Here's where we really start to, like I said, talk about strategy, get really honed in on tactics, on how you're going to get to your goal. Now, there are all kinds of things that you could want as a goal. There's all kinds of ways to get there as well. A lot of times we get locked into, oh, if I want this kind of outcome, I have to do it a certain way. I want to challenge that assumption because you could choose to do it the way that's coming to your mind or the way that maybe you've seen other people accomplish similar goals or the way perhaps that other people are telling you you should approach the goal in this particular way. This exercise that we're going to walk through today is going to allow you to open up to other ideas and other methods of getting across that goal line that might be more personally relevant to you, that might be more fun for you, and that might essentially be more effective for you. Okay, so at this point you have 1, 2, or 3 very specifically articulated goals, okay? You went through the previous video, you went through the SMART goal system, we did it together. You have your draft versions. Remember, we worked through the SMART draft creation process of articulating your goal. The latest version of that goal is actually still a draft. You might be like, oh my God, like how long does it take? How much effort does it take for me to get to writing my goals out? And it's just a little bit more, okay? So don't worry about it. It's worth it, trust me. So in that process, we started to get specific about the how, about what actions you were going to take, what methods you were going to use to help you accomplish your desired outcome. So remember in our example, we talked about how in order to become conversationally fluent in Spanish at the end of the next 4 weeks, we were going to listen to Spanish podcasts while we were cooking. We were going to watch Disney movies with in Spanish with English subtitles. And we were going to use the Duolingo app for 10 to 20 minutes per day, right? Those were the tactics that we could initially and immediately bring from being top of mind. So we put that as essentially an idea generator and a placeholder for our purposes now that we're moving into the next stage. Because this is where we can really start to tease out, do I want to use those methods? Or are there other ways to get me to my desired outcome that I might want to do or that might be more effective that I hadn't considered beforehand. So this is where we start to really give space to the possibilities of which activities are going to help us get to our desired outcome. Okay, so there are 3 parts to the plan stage: brainstorm, select, and schedule. It's actually super straightforward. The brainstorming part is where you're really going to have to allow yourself to stretch the most, okay? So if you turn to page 15 in your workbook, you see plan at the top of the page. Now we're going to start to entertain what are all the ways I could move myself closer to achieving my desired outcome. Okay, so you'll see on page 15 that there's an overview of what we're doing for the brainstorm stage, for the selection stage, and for the scheduling stage. So let's start with B for brainstorm. Okay, so take your first SMART goal that you've set. Remember, you have at least 1 and you have a maximum of 3. Choose one of those. Now, grab a new sheet of paper and write out the latest draft version of that goal. So it's going to be specific, it's going to be measurable. You've done the reality check with seeing what's actually achievable, and we made sure it was personally relevant or resonant. And the time bound is probably 4 weeks unless you wanted to do something different. But again, my suggestion is that we keep it to 4-week cycles so that we can collectively as a community stay on task with that, okay? So you have your goal written at the top of a blank page. So this whole page is dedicated just to brainstorming for this particular goal. Now the brainstorm activity, here's where we're asking a very crucial question, okay? And it's specified on your workbook. What are all the things I could do to help me move closer to reaching my goal? And then you let the brain flow. Write down every single idea that comes to you. It could be, I could read this book. I could talk to this person. I could go here and research this. I could do a Google search online. I could sell this, buy this, connect with this person. It doesn't matter what comes to mind. The most important part of this activity is that you write it all down. We're not choosing yet. We're not censoring. We're not judging. Even if ideas come to you that you've taken action on before and they didn't work out before, still write them down. Everything is getting onto that page that you have, okay? What we're working toward is a minimum of 30 ideas. Do not stop writing until you have at least 30 ideas of all the possible actions you could take that could move you closer to your goal. Now, notice the phrasing that I'm choosing here. What are all the things that I could do to help move me closer? Now, we're talking about the things that I can do. We're talking about personally possible activities. So if one of the ideas comes to mind and it's, or not one of the ideas comes to mind, but we're not looking for, oh, if this person just gives it to me, that's their action. Your action to take could be, I could ask them to give it to me, but we're looking for things that are within our capabilities, that we have agency and influence over, okay? Also, we're talking about what are all the things I could do to move me closer? So it's okay if there are actions or ideas of actions that come into your thought space that are gonna have a little bit of impact, have a little bit of moving you forward, but they're not gonna quite get you all the way there. That's totally fine. We're looking for incremental process. We're looking for big leaps. We're looking for small steps. Everything that's gonna move us in the direction of the goal line, okay? So write it all down. Do not stop writing until you have at least 30 different ideas, even if they sound totally crazy or totally unlikely, or they just sound like, oh, I would never want to do that. It doesn't matter. That's not the exercise yet. That's the next step. This step, we got to give space for the brainstorming to actually take place. If we start saying, no, that's dumb, no, that didn't work, oh, this person will never say yes to me, or oh, that person's out of town, I can't reach them, we're automatically shrinking and we're focusing into justification, selection, we're blocking out now. We want to stay open for this exercise until you have At least 30 ideas, ideally 50. No joke, guys. This is all about opening up for the ideas that perhaps otherwise wouldn't have space to breathe. It wouldn't have space to even be considered in the first place. This is allowing the opportunity for you to connect with things that are not top of mind, but actually might be a perfect fit for how you want to get from point A to point Z. Okay, so if you're doing this in real time, pause the video, go through the brainstorm session. It might take you 5 minutes, it might take you 30 minutes, depending on how locked in we are. Sometimes we are really locked in with the belief, the misguided belief that there's only one way to get something done. That is not true. In this space, all roads lead to Rome. So Rome is your desired goal output and achievement. And those roads are all the different ways that we can get to that desired center. So it's kind of like why I gave you, not kind of like, it is why I gave you 7 different ways to get to your desire in video number 1. Because the goal was to identify, what do I want? And a lot of people think that, oh, in order to answer that question or to identify what I want, I have to think in this way. Or I can only want certain things. But when we allow ourselves to entertain different avenues into the same desired destination, now the brain is seeing different perspectives that we hadn't given it permission to see through before, or we hadn't even realized that those perspectives existed. Same concept, but now we're just applying it to actions that we can take. Okay, so pause the video here and have fun with this. Okay, so now that you have at least 30 ideas written on your page about how you can get closer to your desired outcome, now we can go through and we can start to pick and choose which ones we actually are interested in, we want to take action on, essentially the activities or ideas that you wrote down that stand out to you in some kind of way. They have some kind of like, ooh, it's standing out on the page to you. So go through all between 30 and 50 ideas that you wrote down, circle the ones that stand out to you, because these are the actions that we're actually going to make moves on together over the next 4-week cycle. Now this, don't overthink this. Do an initial sweep and circle the ones that are standing out to you. It's okay if we start to trim those back even further, but don't worry about that. We'll just do an initial sweep of circling which ones stand out to us first. Now, those actions that you've circled are going to fall into one of 2 categories. The first category is going to be what I call one and dones. Essentially, these are actions that once you've taken them, you don't need to take them again. So it might be reach out to a particular person and ask them about their work. It might be to take a particular course to get more education about this particular subject. It might be to purchase a specific tool or resource. So these are things that once you've done them, you don't need to keep doing them. You don't need to keep buying the same resource, taking the same course, reaching out to the same person and asking them the same questions. Those are one and done activities. The other category that the activities that you circled can fall into are repetitive activities. So these are things that you're going to do more than once. Ideally, you're going to do them regularly. So it could be something like, I'm going to make 5 phone calls to potential donors every day. I'm going to deliver a talk at my local community center twice a week. These are things that happen on an ongoing basis over at least the next 4 weeks. So in your workbook on pages 16 and 17, you're going to see 2 blank calendars. One of them starts on a Monday, one of them starts on a Sunday. It's your personal preference. What I invite you to do is to write the dates of the next 4 weeks, or whenever you're starting your next 4-week cycle. We're actually going to start on Monday, which is going to be February 3rd, 2025. So you are more than welcome and encouraged to follow along with us at the Grow and Get It Goal Getters Club. So we're going to be starting on Monday, February 3rd. So you can write the 3rd and go forward in your calendar. And you're going to take all of your one and dones and all of your repetitive activities, and you're going to put them on these calendars. You're going to make it real by physically writing when are each of those one and done activities happening, and when are those repetitive activities happening. So for example, if you're planning to make 5 phone calls per day to people, you're going to put that every day on your calendar. So if you're taking the weekends off from making calls, totally, I get it. But Monday through Friday for the next few weeks, 4 weeks, it better be on your calendar, because this is where we start to see the progress that we are making and the steps that are ours to take to get us closer to that goal line. If we leave it just kind of like we talked about in the clarifying video, in the previous video, if we leave it too vague, we leave way too much room for us to fail. We leave way too much room for the possibility of losing motivation, not knowing what we're supposed to do today, wasting time, all of that. When we can do this right now and say, okay, this one and done is happening on Tuesday, the 4th. This one and done is happening 2 weeks after that on this very specific day. And my repetitive actions are happening here on this frequency every week. So it might be every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. It might be Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The point is to put it on a calendar. If you're like me, I love to use Google Calendar. I live and die by my Google Calendar. I feel like my life would fall apart without it. Put it on the worksheet and put it on your everyday calendar. Okay? Because if you're here and you're working on a specific goal, you're doing that because you care about it. What has it been? Has it been like 2, maybe 3 hours worth of training at this point? If you're still with me, you care about the goal. So let's not fizzle out now at this point, okay? So every step we take, brainstorming potential ideas to help us get there, selecting the ideas that we really like and that really stand out to us, scheduling the ideas, and then we're going to talk about taking action on those ideas. Every step makes a difference, and every step gets you that much closer to the likelihood of you actually achieving your goals and following through to the end, which is what most people never do. Okay, so in terms of this particular phase of the DocPal goal setting system, the planning phase, it's brainstorming the ideas, selecting the ones that really stand out to you, and scheduling them. The next videos are going to be about showing up on a consistent basis and maintaining that sense of connection and loyalty to the goals that you have already invested so much time and energy into. And I can't wait to see this all come to life for you. So if you have any questions, of course, reach out. My contact information is in the description. And then also in the Goal Getters Club, we'll answer any kind of questions that you might have so that we can collectively help you get to where you want to go. All right, I'll see you in the next video.